Okay, they are, so we can, all right, we're just gonna get through the.
You've got to start recording now, right?
All right.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay, call the meeting to order for tonight, and I ask you to join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Couple announcements, we had an executive session before this meeting, discuss litigation, personnel. Also, I'll mention that our township manager is online and our one supervisor is online remotely. So. Next item would be the presentation items. We have a turf field at West Branch Park from PA Rush. If you would like to come forward to the table, introduce yourself and
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Joe Cullen. I'm a board member and a New Britain Township Supervisor, along with Rob Detman, who's also a New Britain Township resident and a board member as well. We have several folks here from our Rush organization. I'd like to just take a second to introduce them. We have our board president, Lisa Ganuski. We have our treasurer, Mark Verdente. And we have several other folks here in support of this project here for West Branch Park. We have given presentations to the Parks and Rec Board. We've been in front of you. We submitted a questionnaire pursuant to the instructions from your township manager, Matt West, and we also had a working meeting with Mike Walsh, the assistant manager, and Matt to go over some of the items. And we're here to ask for your approval to move this item up so we can begin formal arrangements and start discussing an engineering plan and making some other decisions to bring this plan to fruition.
okay. Anything else you wanted to, that it?
Well, we obviously, we set the questions that you proposed about a month ago. We got them out to Mike last week. So all the questions that you were inquiring about. So we're, if there's any additional questions that you have based on the questions that we answered.
Just maybe just for the benefit of the people on Zoom and maybe some of the folks that showed up here, this is a plan that is in the very early stages. We still have to get some engineering stuff done, some other formal, but we've done a lot of work to get this to where we are today. And what we're proposing is a turf soccer field at West Branch Park that will have multi-use. West Branch Park, we thought, was a good location for this because there was already a built-in drainage system from some, I guess, redevelopment that was done at that park before. Also, there's roughed-in conduits for lights. And the area was not such where it was right near a neighborhood where this could be a problem. We don't think it would have a significant impact on the park. And in fact, I think it would enhance the use of the park and would enhance this community by delivering a turf field, which is, you might be reading, there's a lot of turf fields going in throughout Bucks County at different locations. There are one at CB West, there are one at CB East, there's one up in New Hope, and it would really be a great project for the citizens of New Britain Township and would be helpful to our soccer club as well. And as we have proposed, we're going to put the cost of the building out of this and the construction of it, and with the understanding that we would have almost exclusive use to it and also right of first refusal. And there's some other details that we would work through, but we've given kind of an understanding of what our expectations would be for this field. And so we're hoping that you can approve this so we can take the next step and put pen to paper and work with your team here at the township to put something together that's suitable both to PA Rush and also to the New Britain Township citizens.
Any questions that the supervisors have based on their responses back to us?
Yes. When you were here previously, I asked for the percentage of New Britain Township residents that play on Rush teams. that was not provided.
Yeah, we based upon the questions that were asked to us. That was brought to your board, so that's the ones we answered. I'm gonna slip through the crack because again, this was sent to us about 2 weeks ago. And this is the answers we just based upon this.
I know, but when I asked you at the prior meeting, you said you'd get an answer to me.
I did, and again, when this was sent to us, this is the question that were asked based upon your board.
And you do not know.
I do not have that information currently, no.
But you can make sure you can get that.
Oh, I can get that. I could probably get it tomorrow.
And can you supply that to Mike or Mr. West,
100%.
Mr.
Yep.
Walsh or Mr.
Definitely.
West? The questions that were asked, I noticed that some of them, you were asked about foot traffic. I'm more concerned, and I think the residents that appeared at the last meeting were concerned about the car traffic coming through the neighborhoods, coming down Cedar Hill Road, which is a dicey road, and coming in through that area. Did you do any research, or do you have any idea of what kind of traffic increase this is going to cause?
To be honest, I don't see much of an increase because the times that we use that field now, we use it for intramural, we use it for practices from mid-October to basically mid-November. Same amount of foot traffic is going to be there with our teams, with our parents. So the amount of foot traffic that's already there is going to be no different from during the week as well as on the weekend that we already rent from you as well in that space.
So you presented a schedule of times you're going to be using it.
That is a schedule. That's a
Draft.
draft, because again, we won't know the exact dates, exact times and logistics until we get our week schedules, which usually don't come out till, late August.
Okay. But it's Monday through Sunday. It's basically 7 days a week.
Again, we put out a draft. Everything on that draft is, open to conversation, open, we can obviously come to an agreement on our usage. There's definitely days that we can, cut back because we do have one of our other facilities as well to us, our complex. But that is a draft. We were told to, put it all out there for you guys and then we negotiate from that point.
Supervisor, we try to be over inclusive on it because we still gonna have the other facility off there. So that was just it didn't delineate between that field and the one over. So my best estimate would be, all those days would not be used
Correct.
at that field because we still have the grass fields over in Doylestown Township.
But if you run tournaments, that's the field you're going to use.
Not necessarily. I mean, it depends.
It wouldn't, tournament wise, it wouldn't change our usage on a Saturday anyway, because we have 2 or 3 games, 4 games on a Saturday. It wouldn't change from what we're currently using that on a Saturday and a Sunday already. So tournaments wouldn't increase anything. It just.
You can sit down.
Yeah, so our work, what we currently do, thank you. What we currently are there on the weekends, wouldn't increase much more than what we already have. And again, you would see that full-fledged ahead of time. Come late August, we would have our schedule out for you.
So there is information now that it does need maintenance. It will need a machine which is different than what you.
Yeah,
was
after
confusion
doing
on
some
that.
deeper dive, speaking to some townships in there, Whitpain for one, I spoke with them, as well as a turf company. There is a machine that will be a maintenance company that is part of our contract with one of the turf companies that we've been using. They come, they resurface the turf, even out the areas, if there's any blemishes in the turf, they take care of it as well. And they also test the stability of the turf, making sure it's up to par.
And of course, we would bear the cost of that.
Of course. The lights that you're proposing, currently you rent lights and you bring them in. How tall are the lights you currently use?
They, top of my head, they go up about, I want to say 20 feet, 30 feet, something like that, because they roll up, so we can go as
Right.
high as we, basically want. These are obviously, they're temporary lights, gas repelled, so these are going to be, the new ones will be, set light 60 feet tall. Well, the actual lighting aspect of them will be a lot more defined to what we currently use there, because the ones we use there are basically big spotlights that shine everywhere. Now these ones will be actually sport lights that are LEDs that will, will shine right in a specific area. It won't go past the area, and actually has guards on top of it. So, and it won't be using any gas.
Is there any reason why they're 60 feet tall?
That's the proposed based upon the lighting company that we use. I mean, that seems to be the norm, just based upon the size of the field, the scope of what you need. That seems to be, that seems to be what the norm is for most lighting fields in the area.
One other question, I haven't seen any schematics or anything, and I realize you have not yet hired an engineer, which I thought would be a good starting point rather than getting approval and then trying to engineer it. Where exactly is this field going to be in West Branch Park?
It's going to be in the 100 yards within the turf field, the field that's already there. So there's a soccer field that's currently occupied.
In the middle of the park.
Yeah, so
So this is going to sit in the middle of the
yeah,
park
so it's not changing the structure or adding any field to it. It's literally what is already there is just going to be turfed over.
with a fence and,
Correct, yes.
okay. I did note that your cost for the lights, your estimate was from 2016. I'm assuming that's gone up quite a bit since 2016.
Quote for your lights.
The quote for your lights is from 2016.
I've literally got that quote. It might have been error on their half.
Okay,
We got that quote in April.
Okay.
They went to the field, but the lighting study that was sent as well, the first time we met, was also from them from April as well.
Maintenance of the lights, it's not included in the proposal, but I'm assuming it's going to be done.
It's covered by us as well as the contract that we will have with the lighting company.
Liability insurance, not just for people getting hurt, but anyone using the park that flying a kite runs into the fence. Are you going to indemnify the township?
I guess it would depend on the circumstances of when it occurred, how it occurred, and what they were there for. Our proposal, we have a couple of different we have a layer of insurance through our affiliation with the EPYSA.
Mhm.
And then we're also in discussions with our insurance broker about what a policy for this particular field with New Britain Township as an additional insured. We would make sure you're an additional insured on our policy as well.
Okay, and I'm gonna leave that up to our council because although I will confess that my son played soccer for umpteen years, played for Rush at one point, and I would like to see a turf field. I'm not certain that West Branch is the spot for it. I think it would be a perfect addition to Cotton Park. But I'm not sure that I'm envisioning this fenced in area in the middle of the park with 60-foot light towers, and it doesn't scream peaceful, natural recreational area to me.
The fence will be there, and it's an open fence, and it doesn't oppose anything other than the field itself. The walking path is still available, the benches are still there, it's actually in the structure where it is now, so, and I drive by there all the time, I stop there all the time, I live like a half mile from there, so, the actual walking path, it's literally.
I realize it's not going to affect that. But I'm just saying, we now have an open area surrounded by trees and creek, which is a natural recreational open space area.
Mhm.
And you're proposing to put in a fenced in area with 4 60-foot towers. And it's going to change the nature of the park from a park to a sports facility. And I'm a little reluctant to take public property and do that, especially since I'm not sure this is beneficial to the majority of residents of the township. I realize it would be beneficial to Rush. And I do sympathize with you. I know you spent 20 years looking for a property to build this on. Have you ever approached sewer about doing it on that property?
We have,
And they,
the setup there is not it will not work for a turf field. Also some other limitations on the field itself. In this round.
With regard to your concerns about the field, I mean, I understand your concerns, but we also, there's a cell tower right there and a
Yes.
train track going right through the end of it. So I understand I guess.
so it's on one end.
Yeah,
I
it's on
understand
one
that.
end, I understand that, but there's the walking path and the path to back, and I live within a mile of that location too. I understand where you're coming from, but I still think there's gonna be a large portion of that park that's still gonna be preserved for that.
Yeah, I mean, the main attraction to the park for residents, because I drive by there, all the time, I see. There's rarely anyone ever on that field. The main attraction to that park is obviously the walking path. And that is not going to be touched. The lighting towers, yes, they will be an addition, but obviously it's in New Britain's Township. When you built the park to add that eventually, because you did have you put in the capability of doing that. So we're just basically finishing that part of the job with the case of adding the turf field. The main aspect of the park, the walking path, the baseball fields below, when they get the playgrounds, not touched. It's just adding a turf field that will be used obviously by PA Rush, but also be used for community members. New Britain Township's residents can go there, kick the ball around, do whatever they want. And obviously gives you opportunities yourself to have it a little bit more attractive if you want to rent out the field as well, other than to PA Rush, which is currently, I believe, is the only one really rent this time.
Okay, that's the question I have.
I don't mean to always, I apologize, Mary Beth, to
Yeah,
always
no,
be the counterpoint to you.
You love to do it. Greg, go
I know
ahead.
I do, I'm sorry. But the field itself is not a natural park feature to a open recreation area. If you've ever actually had the joy of either playing on that field or coaching or watching your kids play on that field, it's steep sloped on all three sides of it. It's actually, the field is an island unto itself with a 14-foot high fence at one end so that kids don't get hurt when they go off that one side. So it was built and intended to be an athletic field. Now, the argument between whether or not we want to enter into a public-private, agreement and allow it to be a turf field is an entirely different thing altogether. But it was built and intended to be a multi-use sports field. My concern is just ever so slightly environmental. It's having a son who played at Rush for quite a long time and playing and being on turf fields a lot. I still have pellets at my house in shoes from being on one of those fields. So those pellets are ever present. I see in your answers about there's the field is designed in a way that the pellets aren't supposed to, migrate to the perimeter of the field. Is there secondary catch, well, for want of a better term, catch basins designed into these fields as they're put in so that as it does work its way, as players are walking off the sides of the field, they're tracking it, it's going to get tracked, for it to be caught so that it doesn't, I know that our public is very concerned about the fact that this is a watershed. We don't want to see these pellets, ending up in the streams. So.
No, agreed. Now, yeah, we do, the pellets number one are on the field, they won't be on the side. So there will be a significant buffer zone, probably 10 to 15 yards from the time where, the field where majority of them are, to, giving air where they're not. So there'll be an area to, recoup. Also with the maintenance that we're talking about, the one thing the maintenance company does is they redistribute back in. So the heavy areas on a soccer field, typically where you see the buildup or the depletion of the rubber pellets are really in front of the goal mouth, where majority of the action happens, and that's where they can distribute. So during the season, the turf company comes out, the maintenance company, and they redistribute back in. The pellets sit pretty deep into, turf is obviously like anything, everything evolves and gets better through the years. It sits deep inside the turf. So it's not sitting on top. Can some get out? Yes, 100%. But there are deep in the turf. The turf is thicker. It's not your stuff that you would used to see at the vet. It's like, thick stuff. So it's deep into the grass. It's almost like dirt into grass. So there is opportunity of it coming out. The majority of it is going to stay in the field. When it rains, it actually soaks it even deeper down. So when the rain does come, it's going to push the pellets even further down into the turf itself. Again, can some get out? Yes, but for, I would say 99% of it would stay in there. And also, we also have the buffer zone that's going to go out. That is not going to have the rubber pellets in it. So we'll give a little bit of a room for, if some do leave from the field itself.
Okay, not quite sure you entirely answered the question
Well,
I asked,
yeah.
but.
I mean, can I guarantee they're gonna leave the field and not, I'm not, I can't guarantee they're ever gonna leave the field. I mean, there's no way to say that. But if you look at surrounding fields in the area, Central Bucks South, Central Bucks West, some of this, I mean, if you look and you walk the area, 90% of the rubber pellets are within the field, in majority do not come out. Again, can there be occasionally come out? Yes, but if that's the main concern, that's what they do. That's what it's made to stay in the turf.
Is the turf company able to provide some kind of a statistical analysis for what the retention of the pellets on site are? The anticipated walk away rate is, as it were.
I mean, there's probably a survey for everything, there's some data for everything. I can obviously request it. Again, it would be just, how much, I guess, what they refill on it, because again, what would happen is when the maintenance companies do come out, if they see that they need to refill a certain amount, that would obviously tell you how much is that. So I can talk to the maintenance company and see how much possibly leaves the field and how much they annually refill. And that would give us an idea if there's, how much personally would use.
That'd be appreciated. Thank you. I'm good.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit more about the lighting and how far out from the fields that's going to spread, what it's going to look like from the neighborhoods that are going to see those light towers?
I mean, the light tower is gonna be 60 feet tall. So I mean, the surrounding neighborhoods, I know we have on the back side of West Branch, there's a lot of woods back there. So I'm not sure what the visibility is through those tall trees that's behind the creek. I wouldn't know what the visibility is there, but the lights itself are going to be more direct and they're going to be directly on the turf. I mean, they're LED lights pinpointed to that one spot. I'm not, I've seen lights, Ukrainian nationals have lights. They have them all every night running from, 7 o'clock to, whenever. And if you look around the field, I mean, it's dark. I mean, they are so pinpointed, so precise at this point that they're not going to, I mean, the illumination is not going to, it's not going to be able to be provided elsewhere.
And I think we provided an illumination.
We did,
chart
yeah, we did.
To the Parks and Rec committee that kind of showed it. But this is going to be state of the art, and there's shields.
There's shields on them too.
Shields on them.
So there's no glare elsewhere.
All my other questions are answered already. Cynthia.
Before I open it up to public questions, I would like to bring up that these fields were done at least 7 or 8 years ago by the township. At that point in time, we put in the underground conduit because it's been in our plans for years for that particular part to have lighting for that field. The only problem was it cost so much money that we decided not to do the lighting at that point in time. So this lighting is not a new idea. It's something that the township has thought about and planned on for a number of years. So I just wanted to bring that up to the residents that are here about that.
Did you want to ask Cynthia before you open it to public?
Cynthia?
Yes, good evening. I do have a comment that I think we are looking at the big shiny thing at the end, but we are not looking at the bigger picture. Do we think we should be, as a township, allowing a private entity to invest so much money onto our own public land? I do not think we have asked that question of ourselves, nor have we answered it. I'm not against a turf field, but why did it not come up in our capital planning from last year if we all think this is such a huge asset to our township? And that is a question to my fellow board members. Do you believe that we should be doing this? We haven't even talked about the ramifications of what that would mean liability wise for our residents. We've only heard this proposal in November, and we're now thinking in January to say yes or no. Other townships have taken 6 months to see if this is a good option to work with, and we're literally going to do it with very little thought and preparation. So that is my comment.
Does Matt have anything to say at this point?
Hey, I do not have anything else to add. Thank you.
All right, I'll open it up to the public. I would ask you, if you have it, to please stand, give us your name and address and what your question is. Yes,
Ann Control, and I live in the Highlands, which is at Schoolhouse and Butler Avenue. I just wrote down some comments. I listened to your last meeting. I was a child therapist. I know kids need to exercise, but it almost feels like we're being overdeveloped near the Highlands. And I count the Schoolhouse as part of the Highlands because we use that road to get to Hatfield. I use the park, and I love the quiet nature of the park. The curve at where Chop is, that curve. So when I'm coming up, I guess north on Schoolhouse, and I want to turn left in front of the old Acme, there's a curve to that road there, and the visibility is terrible. So if you're making a left turn and someone who doesn't know the area coming from the fields toward Chop, they're going to get hit. So that's a major concern of mine. The railroad is a concern. There'll be siblings probably watching these games. And I know kids wander and kids play on tracks, so that's a real concern. The parking lot would be a free-for-all. There's no lanes. There's not enough parking, in my opinion. I drop a friend's child who's 12 from West Point to Keenest Road for soccer, and also to extra large sports or whatever that facility is. It's chaos. It's total chaos. I just want a peaceful park. The drainage, I mean, that's a peaceful little playground and place to walk, and it'll be ruined. What if I want a peaceful walk and the maintenance men are there maintaining the field? And it just feels like we're just being overdeveloped. The thing behind Wawa, the Spatola area, it's just crazy. So I would say we don't need this. Thank you.
next,
Yes, I sent the board, several.
we have your name and address, please. Okay.
I sent the board on December 2nd, several articles indicating all of the health environmental factors to consider with artificial turf. It's extremely dangerous, it's full of PFAS. They all have it, don't let them tell you they don't. It's the same stuff that Willow Grove and Portia had in their water system, that they've had all those problems. It's right by our watershed. It's dangerous for the kids who play on the turf. You can absorb it, you can inhale it. It creates nature desert because there aren't any worms or anything, so the birds go away. It can elevate the temperature at least 30 degrees on a hot 20 day, and it's that much hotter. There are many environmental and health factors to the residents as well as the kids playing on the stuff. Did you get my email? Send you another seeing the articles?
I believe so. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I don't have to go through everything, but,
Right.
and I agree also, it is a private park. There's no reason to have run a private entity taking over our private. Thank you.
Yes, David,
My name is Betsy Brew. I live at 221 Cassandra Drive in Shopton. My son also, along with Mr. Dave, played PA soccer since he was 5 years old. He is now a coach and a trainer within the club, and I run the intramural program. I live very close to the park. I drive past the park all the time. It is built, as you said, as a athletic field. And it is not used by anyone but PA Rush at this point anyway. There are baseball diamonds there that are never used by anyone. There's even more soccer played up on Schoolhouse Road at the other little park. Parks are meant to be used. They're not meant to just sit there and look empty and pretty. As noted, that train track has been there forever. The field has been there forever. The children have been there forever. And now all of a sudden we want to say that the train track is dangerous because there's kids there that have been playing there long before me. There's also been a proposal for Cotton Park across the street that was to have no soccer on it at all. If I remember the very beginning, that whole thing was proposed and still sitting there empty. PA Rush has been here. Our grandfather is not here. I don't know how many years it's been around. I had a politician come to my house for the elections last fall, telling me that the township has done nothing to create more space for our children, more fields for our children, not just soccer, for any of them. And what his thing, what he made it in here was going to be to help make more fields for our kids to play on, because there are not enough fields. The school districts, which we pay good taxes for, want to charge us outrageous fees to play there. That have turf fields, along with the lighting. You drive by the Yankees field, you see a hue of light on the field, and they're already probably about 8 to 10 years old. So we're looking at higher quality lights going on. So the extra lighting is not going to be a factor, let alone the only people around the park is going to be another park across the street. No township residents live within the lit area of the field. And I had something else. Something, somebody else is doing probably age.
well, it'll come back to you, so,
Okay.
anybody else? Yes, same,
Wait, but 100 Britain Drive here in Britain Township. The two gentlemen, has anybody else like soccer organizations went to a municipality and did what you plan on doing? Anywhere?
Yes, I believe in Horsham Township. Horsham Township, they did, I think.
Yeah,
Did you, coming in late on this, did you bring any of that in front of the board of what they did and what they proposed and the outcomes and anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, we discussed it with the
Okay.
board officials, or I mean, with not the board officials, but we discussed what Horsham did, and also I think what Whitby did.
So you're looking to do the similar thing of taking over of what they took over?
We're not looking to take over.
We're not
anything.
In a little bit of word, it is in a way.
Well, again, we're looking to we're looking to use a field as we already use it, just turf it.
I don't know.
And then to give the option to, be a more,
That's the word.
maybe more attractive place for New Britain Township directly.
Right, but you're literally you're taking over basically a lot of responsibility.
Oh, of the field itself?
Base, yes.
Yeah, the field,
Yeah, a lot
yeah,
of
we're gonna
responsibility.
maintain the field 100%. It's our, so there's no New Britain Township, the field itself doesn't have to worry about maintaining it, so save the cost on that there.
And I presume that this other organization did the same thing with,
Correct.
with Worsham and stuff like that. Do you know how they're living?
I mean,
How's
they're,
it working out? or
they're
anything?
growing, I mean, the wood paint's been around for, I want to say 4 or 5 years. Horsham is adding additional fields. So it seems like
So the marriage is working.
marriage is working.
Basically,
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
my question.
Yeah, oh yeah, 100%, yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
And by the way, we're not looking for full approval, we're looking to get approval to take the next step, to put pen and paper and everything, and,
I'm
you know,
not-
there's gonna be a lot of issues.
It would have been nice, I think it would have been nice to have some type of, even a handwritten sketch of where you might think of where a light might be, where a fence might be, what a parking, and I know it all costs money, was what you're proposing is millions of dollars to put a turf field in. Millions of dollars to put a turf field in. It's not hundreds of thousands. It's close to $1 million, if not more. And I hope that you have the money to do that.
Oh,
So
we
my
would, yeah, I
taxes
mean, we
don't
wouldn't,
go up.
no, we wouldn't be,
Yeah, but
this
they-
is 100% on us. We wouldn't be
I
here.
know, that's what I'm saying. You know, South was 2-3 million, west already. Bids that one in, I think they put three down,
Sure.
plus 2 of them were put down wrong, and that's millions of dollars that went out.
Mhm.
So, hopefully you're prepared for it.
Oh, yeah, we're prepared.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next,
Hi, James Ivers, 75 North Chapman Road. I come here as a resident also. I'm from a competitive soccer organization, so I have no affiliation with Peter Rush. That's a lot of things they've said as far as using township fields. You probably lose a fifth of your practice time and so forth throughout the year because of rain and so forth. So having lights and a turf field is absolutely wonderful for the community. Competition's good, so I'm all for having turf fields in that aspect. Would other clubs rent them? There's probably another 7 clubs in the area that pull from this residence area. 4 of them probably pretty heavily. We pull about 27% of our kids from our organization, from this township. So there's opportunities there. Other clubs will probably rent them when they're not being used. However, the prime time is that fall season when it rains out a lot, or potentially in the spring. As also from our organization, we actually looked to put in our own turf fields, and we determined not to because primarily the township would not give us lights. But during our research, I met with the athletic directors from CB West, South, and East, and had discussions with them. One of the things that I heard before, there was no maintenance. I heard you say maintenance. They maintain their fields basically about once a week. It needs to be combed, repaired, disinfected as well. Like blood doesn't disappear like it does into the earth. So that needs to be done. They do it about once a week. Also groom that. So that means whatever the manufacturer's recommendation is for that turf, that has to be done. My biggest concern, though, as a resident, is right now they have the money to put turf down. I've heard what you said about $1 million of lights, which is about right from my estimation, also pre-COVID prices. But my concern is turf typically lasts about 10 years and never replaced. That's about $300,000 every 10 years, or whatever the manufacturer says. And long term, is Peter Rush going to be here to do that every 10 years? I also know they can probably clarify more on this. I just read they merged with another club in Lehigh Valley. How does that now impact this? As far as, is that club potentially 10 years from now not going to be in this area, maybe somewhere else? Obviously, there's the residents in this area. So this is my question. This is more of a long-term thing as far as making sure as a township president, $300,000, whatever happens to cost, is there covered for multiple years for this.
The cost, yes, it's 8 to 12 years, and the cost when it needs to be replaced based on the manufacturer, if they see fit, we will be covering the cost of the replacement, and that will be in the agreement that we have with the township.
But how do we know you're going to be here for 10 years from now, 20 years? There's so many soccer
Well,
clubs, they come and go.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have a 20-year agreement, whatever the agreement we decide to have with the township on the field. We've been around since in 1965. Yeah, so we're a growing organization. The partnership that you're talking about, that is nothing, that's not PA Rush, that's not a merger. So, it's nothing to do with PA Rush, that you're talking about. So field maintenance, ongoing upkeep down the road, 10 years, when it's 8 to 10 years, and it could be 8 years, depending, handled by us.
Would you consider a 20-year escrow of replacement of fields to the township? The money's already sitting there.
Everything's up for negotiation once we get to that point with the township.
Thank you.
we have to get there first. We have to agree to it first before we even get to negotiations. Other questions? Uh-oh.
Remember, you're talking about traffic on the roads in the area. First of all, if you go on Google and you're coming to the field, it's not gonna send you down Cedar Road to get to it. It's gonna send you down Schoolhouse Road. And I don't know that we're worried when we let all the houses be built there on School Road about the increase in traffic on the School Road. So I don't think that's really an issue. And I'll tell you, I grew up playing. I wish to God we had lights on the field when I was playing and not using car lights to light up the fields. Because We didn't even have the portable lights to be able to pay to bring out to light up the fields line, you know, and it sounds, you know, our organization's been around as long as I've been alive. And it's about time that we start devoting our time and attention to our children, to the community. You're still gonna have a walking park, let alone plenty of other parks around the downtown.
Thank you. Anybody else? You have one more in the back, then I'll get to you. Yes?
So I have two boys that are currently in the rep organization. I have one who's older, and then I have a little guy who's just coming up through the ranks. And to have this field and to have this opportunity for the boys, this is a huge opportunity. Right now, as they get older, we're driving 40 minutes to go to practice at night because there is no turf field that's here. When they want to play a pickup game on a weekend, we're driving to somewhere else so that these kids can play and have fun and be kids. So not only would they do it during the ski and rush time, but then when that field is open, they have this opportunity to all come together. And, you know, as she had said as a psychologist, that's a time for them to learn to get along and play and all those things you work through, the disagreements. As far as traffic, it's being used right now. It was on Saturdays. I saw Betsy there with the little guys. I was actually personally just running because I live right by there. There were people on the track. There were tons of people there. There was open parking spaces. It's been used like that for years and it hasn't been an issue along the way. As someone else has said, it is brush that's using the field. I don't ever see anybody else there either. The fence that's already there, we would just be fencing it on 3 other sides and it would actually make it safer. The soccer balls won't go to the people that are walking on the track, or as that drops off as the island, as Mr. Hood had said, it really kind of encapsulates it and makes it a safer field for the kids to play on. So I just want to thank you for your time. Thank you for your consideration, and hopefully these kids can have this opportunity to play at their neighborhood park.
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah, I just, Terry Dunn, 201 Overlook Drive, Chalfont. I do see those lights. I've seen them for years. They're fine. I can deal with it. I can deal with the noise 7 days a week. That's fine. But my true issue is with the the turf field. If you go down to the lake, like I did yesterday, and just swipe your hand across the grass, you'll get this component, which I'm sure you still see in your gym soccer shorts. It's a very fine granular rubber particle that 81,000 feet of the soccer field requires 200,000 pounds of that item to be placed in the field. And it doesn't, you're giving up 1%, that's nice of you. Then there's about 2 tons that is in the Neshaminy water basin. It's an environmental issue. It gives off zinc. There's no way to trap it. It's going to be all over the place. If you feel good with that, take a look at some of the other lawsuits that are going around from federal and state lawsuits that are being incurred, where boards have made decisions rationally about this type of product. And this is in a floodplain. That's underwater half the time. That structure of the field, I question how sturdy that is when it starts giving out underneath. The rehab is going to be extensively expensive. And who's going to touch it? I don't know, but it'll be on our price tag, I'm sure, as a taxpayer. That's my concern. Thank you very much.
thank you.
As we talked about, and I think we said a while back about the drainage, West Branch did a full drainage thing about 3 or 4 years ago. Redid that with your engineer and we sent that to you. Again, our engineers will be out there looking at that as well, making sure the drainage is sufficient. And again, it is when we sign this agreement with the engineer as well as the turf company, that is a guarantee that the drainage is sufficient at the time. And if it isn't, then obviously it'll be adjusted at the time. There won't be 0 drainage issues. And if it is, it'll be handled at the time by the engineer as well as the turf company. As of the issue with the turf, the pellets, there is other options that are out there, environmental options, because I knew this would be probably the biggest sticking point, maybe. There are, and one of the township fields that I was just talking about uses cork as an insert, as well as there's some other things that can be used too that are environmental friendly. So there's cork, there's shell, there's a shell content, I think it's a coconut, some kind of shell that can be used as well. So there are other opportunities if the pellets are a concern. And we're not against discussing those as well.
More expensive and has to be resolved every 3 years.
Again, the expenses on us.
Okay, thank you.
There is no term, to my knowledge, that does not have a base metal or ground up tires or the PFAS. Those are the chemicals that stay in your body forever. Have you talked to the water authority?
From our turf company, and I can display that they did There are some tests that have been done on the turf that show, and I'll be more, and I've displayed, we shared it with the board, that showed the Los Angeles County School District. They did it with all turf fields that were displayed in their county. They made sure to test every single one, so there was no environmental, and I'd be more than happy to share it with you.
Well, they still cause a nature desert because there is no thing living on that land. So birds can't come. There's other people go there, they want to walk the park, they want to hear the birds. You know, most residents are not going to use it as a soccer field.
Most residents don't use it
Most
now, they
residents don't
use
use
the
it
pitch.
now, like I can literally walk to that field right now from my house. But the soccer field is never used. The soccer field is never used. The walking path is correct.
Yes, well, it's going to make that whole.
Play around the walking path.
In summer, it's going to be extremely hot. Because that's what it does. It makes it, make it 30 degrees hotter. So nobody's gonna want to walk the park if it's. It's good to park the kids to play on.
There's gonna be distance between
Yeah,
the start of the turf field and the walking path.
There's probably a good 20 to 30 yards from the walking path to the turf.
The ambient air is going to be very hot.
Yes. Yes,
Janet Dunn, 201 Overlook. We do see the lights. They hit our backyard. I mean, we do. So to say that they don't, they do. But we put up.
Oh, I didn't say that.
Okay, okay.
Your husband.
So, well,
Yes, I don't want.
and it's not a question of, you know, we had 3 sons, 3 seasoned athletes, Division I, football, whatever. We're used to it. We're used to traveling. We're used to making sacrifices as parents to drive to ball fields, to go on a plane to a game, to do whatever we need to do. So as parents, you know, my argument is you do what you have to do. And yes, kids need activity. They need all this. I mean, it's very, very important. Yes, but just not here, not here. Because of the ecological balance that goes on right there. We have, during Hurricane Floyd, we had our recreational kayaks. We kayaked on that field. That's how we really did. So when there's monsoon weather, we're underwater. It is underwater. And to repair that is just, it's not like a little nick that you have to, it's just, again, not opposed to doing any of this anywhere, but not here. And the zinc is the byproduct of this product into our waters, and we're gonna lose what we have.
Again, when it comes to the drainage, it's above my pay grade, that's why a lot of engineers take care of it, so.
It's after it's approved. No, because
we're not there yet.
that was looked at. Environmental things were supposed to be looked at during the last meeting.
When we got the questions from the board, and that's the questions we answered. When it comes to the drainage or anything such as that, there's an engineering firm that we will work with, as well as a township engineer, and make sure, as well as there's already drainage built that was redone there 3 to 4 years ago, because there was a drainage issue. The field was, well, Floyd, and before that was completely flooded. Then they regraded the field, put all new drainage in, which we already have that diagram on the website from the first meeting. So if you took a look on the website, you would have seen it. As well as when we talk to the engineers, we'll have that done again going forward, as well as with the turf pellets. That is an issue. There are other environmental options available, which I'll be more than happy to go.
Just be mindful, it's wetlands, and it's wetlands for a reason. It's wetlands for a reason. And protected for a reason.
But also set up as a field for play.
Oh, yeah, you can play on it, just not artificial turf, which is going to destroy the ecosystem.
one more question, yes. Here you go.
When the Highlands Lake was redone, I know the engineers that came to our association meeting, they said they had to pass all these environmental checklists. Is that going on here in this project?
Again, when we get to that point, we do have to get licensing done and permits done, and the environmental permits will be done at that.
We have to
point.
get approvals from DAEP, from Bucks County Conservation District. I'm sorry.
All 3.
We will have to, that will be required before we do put a shovel in the ground or do anything like that.
But does that come before does all of that come before you're asking for approval to do this?
No,
So
No,
No, what?
No.
No. It would be,
You're not-
it would be, I assume would be part of the approval process that this needs to be done. Checks and balances need to be done. We're basically looking for the okay to start that process of getting the checks and balances done at this point. And once, if they say no, then obviously, then.
My name is Ron Walker. I live at 203 Overlook Drive. My house backs up to the woods that back up to that park. Right now, if you're in that park, you can see the back of my house. I'm seriously concerned about 60-foot light towers. And all of the drainage from that park goes directly into the creek. So any pellets or whatever is put there will wind up in the creek. And that's my.
Again, I'm not a specialist in this, but talking to the turf company, the drainage is set up to a way, because, I mean, millions of fields are done across the country, across the world, that their job is to keep the pellets, much monsoons, rain, hard weather, to keep the pellets, whatever goes into that field, in the field. That is the job. They're not
Are built in watersheds, and those fields aren't as close to the creek as that field will be.
I couldn't agree with that, because there's fields across the country, so I guarantee there's probably one full of watersheds across, I mean. Somewhere in the country. So, I mean, that's, yeah, I mean, we're all, that's hypothetical.
okay. One more question, that's it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, mine.
Just a curious question. Have you forecasted from other turf fields what the demand increase would be? It sounds like a turf field is sought after. Obviously, you might have data from your organization, but how about others that are potentially looking at that? Will it make that area a kind of a hyper spot for a lot more activity? So just curious if you have.
Yeah, I mean, the turf field is an attraction to other organizations, field hockey, lacrosse, whatever it may be. I mean, if you look at CD West, I mean, they run them out left and right to different organizations, which is ultimately an opportunity for New Britain Township to gain revenue on top of that, because then we have field hockey come out, lacrosse come out, whatever it may be, to look to rent those fields. But yes, a turf field would be a very high commodity for money organizations.
You say we have questions on the computer, Mike?
Yes. There are 3 hands raised online, so I'm going to do them one at a time. Please state your name.
Hi, my name is Daniel Hall. I lived at 304 Stony Hill Drive, Chalfont, Pennsylvania for 28 years of my life, and my parents still reside there. I believe there's not many people that know the West Branch as much as I have, growing up there, playing there as a kid, and also playing at Lenape Valley Soccer Club and PA Rush. And now I've come back to coach at the club for the last 6 years. Dating back to when I was a kid, I used to go there with my dad and my brother since I was 3, and people rarely ever used it. And I've heard a couple comments in here about flooding. The flooding would only happen on the far right side where the park is, where where the playground is for the kids. The soccer field is located on the far side, closer to the railroad, which, because it's been raised now after the renovation of that area, I doubt the flooding would touch that. I'm assuming that's why they raised it the way it did. But growing up in that area, people rarely ever use that park. And again, I lived there for 28 years of my life, and now coaching there, I see why this place is so important. It's such a great area for the kids. The kids go there, they love it. I see parents always talk so highly about it. We have meetings constantly with my teams saying how they do have a playground there. We don't have access like that to our other facilities like that, especially our home base. And also, again, it's going back to the point that I rarely ever see people using it. A park's meant to be used. It can still be peaceful and everything like that. But this brings so much more to it. I also grew up in North Jersey where my grandparents lived, and they built 4 or 5 little small turf fields, and every single place was always filled when I go in there. This turf field is so important for me to see this for the kids that I coach, especially for the future. I've always had to find other routes to go just because of the limited access to fields growing up, especially at PA Rush. Played at multiple other clubs, and it was always tough. So I understand the travel as well, but this would be the perfect opportunity to help grow this community the way I believe it can, because growing up in Chalfont, there were there were kids playing on that field every single house, and I don't see that anymore like it used to be. And I hope this can be passed because I think it'd be amazing for the area, for everyone that uses that place too. I think parks need to be used, and this will allow that park to be used for many years to come.
Thank you. Hey, Michael. The next person. We're here to hear questions, not a guarantee of services they love with Rush. We want to hear what their questions are referenced to this park. So let's see what the next one
Once
is.
he opens them up, you can talk them down. Get that gavel out.
Please state your name.
Hello, my name is Kevin McKeon. I live at 143 Upper State Road in Chalfont. I'm not sure why we're being held to just questions since everybody allowed to voice their opinion. I'm sorry I couldn't get there tonight. Right now, my daughter is training. She plays for PA Rush. She's training all the way over at Adjournment Academy. It's a hike when you're trying to get schoolwork done and also play sports, competitive sports. There are miles of trail being built along with the 202 Parkway and the whole trail system going from, I believe it's Peace Valley Park, all the way over to the lower Nike. So you're not losing any walking trails that are, scenic and, places to go. You're gaining more and more. This club is trying real hard to stay relevant and stay around. So, with the addition of turf, you're enabling that. Without it, my wife is a manager. Rescheduling after rainouts it's a full-time job. For everybody who wants to, nitpick about where the soccer field is going to go, drive by the park. The soccer field's there. You can see exactly where it's going to go. Lights are going to go on the corners. It's not very hard to figure out. My question is, why is everybody fighting it so hard? That's all.
Thank you. Everybody's just asking, asking their questions. So thank you.
Well, democracy.
That was the last one.
That's the last one?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The other person put their hand up, so.
Oh,
Okay.
their hand up. Okay. I thank you all for coming. The board will be taking this up for advisement at a future date. And thank you all for coming out to voice your concerns. So our next item will be moving on. Thank you very much, Joe.
Greg.
We have the rest of our meeting to go on,
I
so if
would
you
ask
could, please go out into
What
the
do you turn the
lobby.
temperature to? Why did it go all the way down to 65? It was like, well, I'm freezing all of a sudden. Like I told you to set it at like 68. So
Everybody.
That's what I keep my house at. That's what I keep my house at, 65.
Ah,
That's working.
it's not a very good thermostat.
I think you put the air on. It feels fine to me.
Now
It's good now.
Okay. We're ready, we'll get on with the meeting. Next item, subdivision land development projects, this is informational only. Possible action taken at the next Board of Supervisors meeting.
Chief, can you get the door? Thanks.
Oh, she's got it. All right.
9 Sellersville Road, waiver request.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Jeremy Hosen from the Crossroads Group. We're the civil engineer and landscaper for the project. With me is the applicant, Mr. Alberto Pecci, and his son, Al Pecci.
You can sit down, by the way.
Thanks. I thought we had to wait 10 minutes.
Hence,
Thank you for having us tonight. I know this is a little bit of unusual for us. We don't typically come in with waiver requests on a building permit plan. we were contracted by the applicant recently and looked at the recently subdivided plans, subdivision land development plans that were approved by the township, I think, in the last 5 or 6 months. As we looked at that, we felt that a waiver request is warranted on a particular site. As you said, the site's located at 9 Sellersville Road. The proposed, the approved subdivisions for 2 residential lots for the applicant and his son. The waiver request that we're asking for, as we looked at the site, pertains to driveway slopes. So the site, if you're familiar with the location, there's a short, somewhat steep hill, 2 or 3 foot hill right off the edge of the road. And then the site slowly, I'll say, tapers up towards the rear of the lot. Because of building footprint, the envelope, we felt it would be best to reduce the environmental impacts, reduce the cut fill for both the applicants who are going to live there. We could ask for the proposed relief. So the section that we're asking relief from was documented in our waiver request letter. I did bring copies in case the board doesn't have any copies with them. We also provided 2 exhibits. Okay, that I approached and hand this out.
Sure.
We also provided 2 exhibits showing the potential.
I don't need one. I've got it in front of me. Thank you.
Potential for each lot, since they a little more than a conceptual grading plan,
Thank you.
but it certainly wasn't a full building permit plan. That requirement is for a 3% level area for the first 20 feet coming off the public right of way. And I believe a maximum slope. Or maximum grade change of 6%, maximum driveway slope of 8%. The existing elevations in this area that we were asking for in the waiver request letter is to exceed the maximum differential in slopes and the maximum driveway slope. We submitted this to the township staff as well. We did get feedback from the engineer, which we appreciated. They also recommended potentially an alternate request to that, which we're certainly open to. The township engineer's recommendation noted there's no level area currently. There's an existing residence there. It's going to be demoed. And could we shorten the 20-foot level area that's required to be 3%, shorten it to 18 feet and increase that to 4%. So we're certainly welcome to that idea. Either iteration gets us within an inch or 2, one from the other. So whichever the township is most amicable towards, we'd be happy to accommodate. Additionally, with this, we looked at, I'm sorry, let me back up. As part of the township staff's review, the fire marshal did note there's no emergency service issues with having the steepness of the driveway slope. They can serve these 2 proposed residences from Sellersville Road. But hopefully there's any safety concerns at all with doing this. It's still well within the realm. It's still well within the realm of many township standards. So again, we're asking the request from New Britain and access to theirs. We did look at neighboring properties as well.
Let me stop here. We got a long meeting tonight. You have our letter, December 13th, 2022. You referenced our conditions. Do you agree with those? Are you okay with doing?
We're okay with either. I'm happy to talk for an hour if you guys want to have we're happy with
You
that.
modify an approved plan by another professional engineering company.
Right.
That's why you're here, because they didn't get that waiver. This happens occasionally. Typically, it's a field change that I approve by my office. In this case, that's in there for fire protection. Your driveway's pretty short. As we noted, and I think you just summarized, the fire marshal would not drive up that driveway to fight a fire. He'd stay out Sellersville Road. So that kind of is why that requirement's in there. The other reason you're in front of here is you're not the design engineer, and I'm okay with that as well. But your plans and your letter, first of all, your plans aren't sealed by a professional engineer, and your request letter was submitted by engineering training, not a professional engineer.
Right.
So although it's a very minor request, as far as I'm concerned, they did a great presentation. As long as you agree, and I think they have our letter, we're okay with granting you that waiver subject to you revising their plans based on December 13th. If that's the case, I think it'd be put on for the next meeting for approval. Unless the board has questions, some typically I would handle. to my office, but because you're asking for that waiver, you need to get that to change the other engineer's approval and their plan. So, are you a licensed professional engineer?
I am not. We have licensed professionals on our.
I need someone to seal these plans.
Yes, they will be sealed. We have multiple engineers.
And all the conditions that were on the prior approval, because you just can't take another engineer's plan, you know that. So that's why it got a little complicated. I originally said no to this probably 3 or 4 months ago. You probably got that. All right, I got all kinds of reasons why you wanted to do it. It turns out the fire marshal doesn't want to access the property to fight a fire. So he will only fight that fire from Sellersville Road. I'm fine with that. That's what's there. So I recommend the board that the condition be granted based on December 13th letter, and that be presented, I guess, or put on the agenda for 2 weeks for approvals.
Well, that would actually have to be 30 days from now, roughly, our business meeting, our next business meeting in February.
Okay.
Well, we could always
Okay.
deviate from that.
Yeah, we could deviate.
Yeah, we can deviate from that schedule.
I'm being overruled, so it's
Well,
be in 2 weeks.
yeah,
I recommend you, if you're gonna make a motion, I would recommend you grant the applicant the waiver request subject to Gilmore Associates, December 13th, 2022 letter.
No, we're gonna do it the first meeting in February.
That's at our next meeting. This is information.
not today, not tonight, but
Yeah.
You're okay with that?
Yeah.
okay, you're fine then.
This isn't on the agenda for decision tonight.
But it can be on the one for the first meeting in
Right.
February,
Yes.
not the second one in February.
For hearing.
That's what Bill was referencing.
Correct.
Not yet.
Not yet. I think we need to seat him someplace different.
Okay.
It's on the end, he gets.
So you're all right with that?
We're comfortable with that.
Yeah, okay, you guys should get the plans all ready to go, get them sealed, signed.
Yeah.
And they'll be ready to go in February.
Okay, I was gonna ask, can we file the architectural plan? Can the applicant file that concurrently with our BP plans? Is that?
That's, there's a time.
gonna leave that up to the building code.
You need to call in to building code official. There's a time clock that you need to wait. If he doesn't approve the plan in so many days, there's issues. So
Got
if
it.
this drags out, then I think if you sign a waiver, you need to work on it.
Okay, that's fine. I appreciate it.
All right.
Okay.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you all.
Thank you very much. Next
Picking on
item,
me over there. Oh, you picking on me over there.
let me throw some. Next item is 4311 County Line Road, Toll Brothers revised sketch plan.
Mr. Clark remains standing.
Yeah, needs to be.
No, we're not joking, actually. Stay standing.
We dropped off
Pictures. We didn't see
12
the
copies
pictures.
of an exhibit package, we have an
Yes.
architectural rendering that was not included.
Thank you.
But again, we're here tonight for a sketch plan. The CTP management tract, which is behind Wawa.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, all. Takes access from County Line Road as well as they shared. Picture.
You have an extra one? Maybe you can just pass it around to some of the people back here that may be interested. Just
So we've been working on this for about a year. Started with 62 units, down to 57 units, down to 47 units, and the sketch plan before you tonight is 44 units. As we said about a year ago, our plan was to figure out how to do this by right. Figured that out under the zoning ordinance. We spent a lot of time working with Gilmore and Associates. We spent time before your planning commission. You've been kind enough to give us your feedback on several points. You have in front of you a response to the Gilmore Associates last review letter. All zoning comments will comply. There were some Saldo comments in there. We're not gonna get into those this evening because we still have to go through conditional use. And after conditional use, we would have to go through land development. The PCCM is currently approved by a conditional use, so we are amending that conditional use or proposing to. So we go past the sketch plan phase.
we've broken out what we thought were some of the hot button issues or discussion points. One, an impervious surface. That's at tab 2. We are well under the maximum allowable impervious surface for this residential use. I think that's important to note because that demonstrates that we're not trying to pig out on density. Typically, if you're up against a threshold or trying to go above and beyond impervious surface, or we're asking for relief from that, this shows that we're keeping it below that. And also just given the site constraints, the shape of the parcel, the fact that we have to have a curved road, that creates areas where we just couldn't conceivably put more lots without either driveway conflicts or running into some other dimensional criteria. You also have an open space exhibit, which shows you the calculations of the open space on the residential parcel. You also have the general site plan, which if you want to read through all the calculations, tabulation, which shows you the work that's gone into complying with this section of the zoning ordinance. But I think one of the best things to look at is the rendered site plan, which is tab number 5. What you see is a lot of green area. We think there's a lot of trees, and that will show that this property will be well buffered. We'll have a significant amount of existing vegetation, some new plantings. It will be really a lot of green area on the residential side of this, as well as a lot of additional green area that's not there today once the trees are planted. And you'll also see some improvements to the ingress from County Line Road to the Creamery Tire property. And that will be improved there as shown as proposed in the plan. Handed you an architectural rendering. So really what we're here tonight, wanted to hear some feedback and if there are any comments. I know this is, it was hope that we could do this by right. I think we found a way to do that, and we are appreciative of all the comments and all the work that's gone into this, and we're hopeful for big comments and move on to preparing a conditional use plan for permission review and ultimately a conditional use hearing, and then hopefully land development after that.
What is the name of the proposed development?
Do you have a name?
I don't have one yet. Usually it goes through like a market. Suggested, I mean, if there's.
Mr. Kennard has some suggestions.
They know that. I called you overlook at Wawa. Actually become the name. Before, just to highlight a couple of things before the board comments, the open space, and that was a big part of planning commission, the board. I believe your plans say 1 acre is required and you're at 1.74 acres. So you're at 3/4 of an acre more. The density per the board zoning. You indicate your units went down. I think the ordinance specifies 25% mixed use can be allocated for residential, and you're at 15%. Correct. So that's where that density has dropped down, just more of site constraints and the layout more than anything. We typically don't get that type of scenario where they're well below the density and well below the impervious, but obviously the site, the geometry and more of the geometry of the site dictated that. And then the planning commission, I think the last time our planning commission was back in April, and this board also then discussed it, saw that plan. We worked with their staff. There's a connection to the Wawa driveway. They've agreed as part of this, and you'll get more of this in the conditional use application and from my plans. They do show a connection through a 30-foot easement. I believe is the road 20 feet in there? 24. So they only were granted a 30-foot easement through there. You did work with Wawa. They've agreed to that verbally, I believe. Yes, correct. They also agreed to allow sidewalk to be built along that road connection to Wawa and then out to Butler Avenue at the Signalites intersection, right at the connection. We also worked with them on sidewalk connection. Planning commission board asked for sidewalk out to County Line Road, and they worked with Creamery Tire owner, landscaping provides, I think, the parking layout a little bit, the landscaping, and provide sidewalk connection out
to the current entrance to the back entrance to Wawa. There'll be sidewalk on one side. There can't be sidewalk on the other side. There's a detention basin already there built. There's not enough room to safely have a sidewalk or pedestrian access. The only thing that's been removed from the plan that I think the last time the planning commission foresaw this are trails. So I'll get that out there now. That's going to be a discussion item. Later, trails were removed for different reasons, but obviously they're willing to listen to that and you know, that could be a further discussion item. Those are the other highlights about what Mr. Fox.
And to piggyback on something you mentioned about connectivity, so the PCCM talks about developing in a way where commercial is connected to residential uses. So this is the residential component then of the PCCM. And I think we're pretty proud of the connectivity that's provided here in Wawa and then also down through the Wawa parcel across to the shopping center. So it does accomplish that objective, which is set out in your zoning ordinance. I think we've used every possible avenue, including preliminary tire and the available easements to make use of that and hopefully come up with something that's amenable.
So, if I may, the space between the units and the Wawa, which is in green, is that a detention basin or is that a stormwater management area or?
Existing, it's a riparian area, like wetlands.
Okay,
riparian.
so it's not gonna be usable spaces, okay.
And there's trees in there now, and there's we're respecting the boundaries of what's there, and I think that's part of the Wawa approval as well. Correct.
So the open space would be the light green areas?
Light green and really mostly to the rear of the townhomes.
Right. I think there's some other comments.
Yes, I have one. Oh, go ahead.
No,
Ladies
go
first. Okay, okay.
No, I know you have one. Go
Oh,
ahead.
okay. All right, all right. I have an issue with the unintended long-term consequences. If I could reference your letter page, I believe it's 7. Starts at 7, number 14 through page 8. It's actually where are we? Sorry, I gave my copy to Craig and I closed the browser. 22-722.4. You're showing patios and decks in the actual 70-foot setback. For me, this is a non-starter. I'm not going to create an issue where every single person who's going to want to come in as a future possible homeowner needs to go get a variance to build a deck or a patio on a home that they're buying where they think they already were going to have that right. So you need to either shrink those footprints or lose a unit and make them more square to provide areas to the rear of each of those units so that a resident doesn't have an unforeseen future consequence of purchasing where they're purchasing.
And I'll chime in there since that's probably, you're not prepared for that. I looked at that right before the meeting. The section that your engineer references in zoning that I think approaches are allowed, that's in the minimum building setbacks, not property yards. So it's quite clear. I checked 722.4 that Mr. Hood referenced, and also buffer requirements that you have a stricter requirement in Souda than you do with zoning. But no structures at all are permitted in the buffer yards. So we're still looking at, so that have to be adjusted. We can look at that. And so you can't apply the encroachment. I think a third of the yard can be encroached for a deck or patio. That's in the minimum building setback.
Not a buffer.
Okay,
That's fine.
That was all I had.
Okay.
Otherwise, you did a really good job of coming in. We'll comply.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
We got one. All right.
just so everybody's aware, we did not review the latest sketch that you've seen.
Right.
Submitted that last week. But a couple times, so this is, not much has changed and we don't need to go through it again.
And we just, submit a conditional use application. We anticipate that'll generate a review letter, see if there's anything that would have to be further revised. proceed to conditional use, and then that would really be the. For land development.
Other questions?
I have, I'm sorry, do you have any?
Not at this point.
Okay, I just have one other, and I know this has to do with PennDOT, et cetera, so the entrance off of County Line Road. I know you said you're not able to put sidewalks in front of property that's owned by Creamery. Is there gonna be any kind of deacceleration lane? Any kind of restriction on turning left out of that driveway? It's a high speed, high traffic area and it's.
Yep, so once we submit, if not sooner, once we submit a land development plan, we may even submit a scoping application to PennDOT ahead of time. Probably for the conditional, we'll probably do that for the conditional use application.
We resolve that, at least have a scoping with PennDOT. Scoping meeting means there'll be a preliminary feedback, nothing's writing. It's an existing driveway, I think there's a decel lane there already for the Wawa. They may need to modify that, maybe restrictions. I would recommend we meet with PennDOT. And address that as your conditional use application.
Probably
Attach reasonable conditions to that. That has not been on, we have not really discussed that anymore. If it was a new driveway, we would.
Sure.
That, but it's not driveway.
I have a comment from Cynthia. Okay.
Thank you, Mike. I do appreciate the smaller number of units and having less density on this property. That I think would be is a great thing. I know we had talked about doing a trail in the back, connecting the neighborhood that is adjacent to it. And I see it's now not on our plan. Is there a reason why that's not feasible?
I think we're open to it. I'm Brian from Toll Brothers. We're open to it. I think we've gone back and forth talking with Gilmore, whether or not the trail should be in that required buffer. And again, we are open to it. If there's a connection point that, I remember there was the discussion coming out of the development to the north orientation. If that connection is there, we can talk during conditional use or during land development, see what makes sense for everybody. We're not opposed to it at all.
Also, I know you said that there would be no sidewalk on the one side of the curve. How about if we just go straight across county line? Is there any way of putting a sidewalk along there? Hopefully in future, there'll be more sidewalks along county line.
I know there's a sidewalk on the other side of the county line, and really, the only way to get across county line would be a flashing beacon on that kind of road.
No,
It'd be dangerous.
no, they have to go to,
Very
no, they gotta go up the hill.
No.
No,
Dangerous.
Cynthia, PennDOT will not allow, Craig, PennDOT will not allow a crossing at that location. Yeah.
I wasn't thinking of a crossing. I'm just saying how it goes in front of Creamery Tire, also to go in the other direction as well.
So in front of Creamery Tire, we looked at it. We did kind of graded some things out. We talked to Gilmore about it. There's some grading challenges in front of Creamery Tire. And as you know, Creamery Tire has a large roaded access, so the sidewalk would stop. Going the other direction on County Line, there's a roadside swale that goes as far as we could see. There's culverts where people's driveways traverse. So I think the sidewalk on that side would be complicated going kind of north orientation.
Okay, thank you.
And to follow up with that, that was part of why they agreed, because I did push that issue to make a connection at Wawa out to Butler Avenue. You can walk down from Butler, head over to County Line Road and still get to the same destination. But it is unsafe situation with the grading. The widening that took place with the bypass, I really took a lot of land there. There's a decel lane already for going into, making it right into the Wawa driveway. So they agreed to extend sidewalk out to Butler Avenue. You could still get to that intersection a different way.
Yeah, and the sidewalk would be proposed up on the berm. If you know Wawa, like that entrance, so it would be away from
cartway traffic, it would kind of be sitting up on top.
Anything else, Cynthia?
No, no, thank you.
Does Matt have any? Is Matt still awake?
In his defense, he's ill, so.
Yes.
I am, but the host wouldn't let me unmute. I'm kidding. I don't have anything further. It's, I just appreciate the willingness of the applicants to continue to work with the township. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, public's turn. Name and address, please, if you want to. Yes, in the back.
I'm Sandy Smith and I live at 516 Erie Avenue. The property that you're talking about is right behind my house. And when I was here before, there was a meeting on the Wawa where they were building the new Wawa. I just wanted to find out, when I was at that meeting, that back area was called the wetlands. So are we allowed to build on wetlands? I guess there's no law, but from what I understand, now I've lived there for 36 years. And when they say wetlands, it is that, the water runs down constantly, the groundwater, it's amazing. It just, has flooded mine downstairs, probably at least 3 times. I even had FEMA out there who gave me a check for replacing my drywall down in my den. I've since then put in sump pumps and encapsulated my crawl space and just tried to do everything I could. But I know that water keeps coming down. And there were fence people in front of my house who dug a hole and a few inches down. So are you really allowed to build on wetlands?
Well, Greg, I mean, you can answer as well.
They're not, the wetlands are behind the Wawa. They are respecting the wetlands. That's why there's extra open space. That's, and that's why the density got a little bit lower in that area. So, I think someone mentioned, about what was going on there. That's all wetlands. So that's closer to Wawa than your property. They are crossing, and it's all in a conservation easement, by the way. All that was already preserved as part of Wawa. The state will allow you, and the township will allow you with a permit to cross wetlands with a driveway or a street or utility. So there was already a utility easement going through there. I don't know if there's any existing utilities or not. But there's proposed 30-foot easement that they're allowed. They have to get the proper permits. But that would most likely be permitted by the state to cross. If not, then they won't build that part of it. No other parts of the wetlands are being disturbed. I did review that.
Okay, because, well, my house is not that far from Wawa.
I see.
But,
There's no flood, by the way, there's no, I don't know, you said FEMA was out. There's no floodplain, no creek. I'm not sure why they were out there. It's not like the park project we were just talking about where there was a floodplain on the property around the soccer field. There's no designated water course or any floodplain in your area. I know that area pretty well.
What's that building in there? What's that wet building in the backyard there? Behind my house. I'm sorry. Right here, 520 Erie Avenue. There's like an old well house.
We need your name.
What's your name?
Jason Root.
Thank you.
That's probably Spring House.
The water that comes into County Line Park, when it rains, where's that water gonna go? When the homes are built there?
I was, just to clarify, I was talking about a floodplain. She mentioned FEMA. That's groundwater and spring water runoff. That's totally different.
Okay.
There's different regulations.
I understand that. Then to my question.
The township doesn't regulate groundwater.
So if there's springs, we have those throughout this township. That's quite common. Most of the new developments encounter them when they build basements and becomes issues. So yes, that's all on them.
Can you explain, Craig, how we require them to manage any storm water that's gonna run off?
Yeah.
I know,
Yeah,
but
so
I
all
think,
storm water will be managed. The two basins, are they going to be going up County Line Road? They haven't gotten this far yet. This is where they haven't designed everything. Yeah, so they have two big proposed stormwater facilities. I will tell you, and I say this all the time, once a road's built, at least the surface runoff will be captured by that road. You got houses, roads and houses, and that's all going down the County Line Road. They have not engineered and graded this all out yet. So
the purpose of our engineer is to ensure that any impervious surface that's created by this development, that runoff from the impervious surface is called stormwater, it must stay on the property, must be managed on their property, and should not create any more water coming onto your property from the development. What he's saying is we can't control the water that's coming onto you from natural sources.
And there's also a 75, so this is unique because of the Butler Avenue corridor overlay. The buffer requirement to the back of the area avenue residence, the buffer yard would normally be 45 feet. That's not the building setback, that's a buffer yard. Your ordinance requires 75 feet for this area. So that's actually quite unique. So, and that was Mr. Hood made a mention that he did not want any decks or patios even in that 75 feet. So the nearest outside of a trail, no buildings or accessory structure be permitted within 75 feet of any property of area avenue. That also allows its vegetative natural filter for any runoff from the back there, but they will have to control that. That'll all be reviewed. The state looks at that, the county or the state looks at it as well.
Other questions?
Plainville, 100 Brittany Drive. Has the township approved building on this piece of parcel of land?
They've only approved the zoning for it. But that was part of the Wawa, the zoning for how much residential could be built on this property. I mentioned they're about 25% residential. They're at 15. They could do, I believe you do commercial, right?
Could.
Yeah, they could do commercial back there. But that was all done, the zoning. So that's why we're still focused on zoning. We haven't gotten into the engineering and all that. So no, there's no prior approvals. In fact, this is a deck plan. I think I've reviewed at least 3 sketches. They want to make sure they had all the zoning worked out and all the bigger 10,000 foot level stuff before we get into the.
So I'm taking it as right now, the township has not approved any residential or commercial being built right now.
Not on this
These
side.
gentlemen are just coming in preliminary.
The sketch plan.
It's a sketch plan. Yeah. Yeah.
Have you-
Would you mind explaining what that is?
Yeah.
Well, this is, to add on to this. Granted, I would not want, I don't live right there, I'm part of the township, I would not want to see any more housing, I think we have too much housing development. Have you gone to this community and talked to them? Instead of, I think you were 10 to 20 houses more than the 44 you're talking about now. Have you went to this community and asked them what, granted, you own it, you build it, I get all that. Hey, maybe we could put in, 10, 12 singles, 10, 12 twins. It was done on Schoolhouse with a plot of land that the builder wanted to come in with townhomes. Okay, and then the property got reduced down to 5 singles. Okay, on the piece of property. Okay, have you went to that community and, hey, what do you think? I'm sure they're going to say, I don't want nothing built. Okay, I get that.
That would be our
I get that, right? You own, not you, but whoever owns the property, as long as they go to the board and pass all the zoning and, dot their i's and t's, cross their t's. I think it would behoove you, okay, Toll Brothers, to sit down with this community over here. Okay, and show something else.
Okay, 44 is a lot of homes. Okay, that's 88 cars. And I got kids, all right, there's gonna be more cars. Right now, that area is a mess. And that's all I'm saying. Whoever owns it, can do what, they can put a parking lot there, they can put a car lot there, they can put a storage facility there. I get all that. My thing is you go to that community and talk to that community and sit down with them. That's too many houses. It's gonna start overrunning our area. There's 2 or 3 more that are gonna be developed. There's gonna be developed on the north end of our community. Or another project. Talk to the community. Talk to them. Thank you.
Next.
I just wanted them to explain this, I don't think the public also understands what that is
Sure.
and what conditional use is and.
Sure. A sketch plan is an informal process through the township's subdivision and land development ordinances, as well as Pennsylvania Municipal Planning Code. It doesn't create any rights. It's just a way for us to solicit feedback from township officials, township professionals, members of the public, and present at a public meeting. And also create a documented trail of what we've submitted, what's been reviewed, so that there are reference points and we have some confirmation of what is and is not in the zoning ordinance. So what this property is zoned is PCCM, I believe it's Planned Commercial Center Mixed Use, which has some very, very specific criteria of what can and cannot be built there. So only up to 25% of this overall PCCM can be developed as a residential use. That includes the Wawa property and the Creamery Tire property as well. What we're proposing is 15.5% of the overall PCCM being developed as residential, which is lower than the maximum allowed 25%. I don't believe single family homes are permitted here. It's only 2 types of residential dwelling units, either a townhouse like we're showing, or stacked townhouses, which are more like condos or apartments. So these are, it's in my belief, based on the use is allowed in the zoning ordinance. This is a much less intense use. I believe there was once upon a time, there was a grocery store, I think a Superfresh plan for this property, which that didn't go anywhere. But of the uses allowable in this zoning district, this is probably one of the lower, if not the lowest intensity type use as far as traffic, and also what we're proposing as far as density. And we do understand that this is a change. It's been a vacant property for a while, and we'll have to come back. Conditional use is the zoning. That's what Wawa was approved through, was a conditional use process, which will get a review from the township engineer. Typically we go to planning commission, get their input, and then it's a formal hearing before the board of supervisors, where they make sure we're in compliance with the zoning ordinance, and then they can attach conditions to us based upon our testimony and what their ordinances require. And then after conditional use, if we do obtain conditional use, we go through what's called the land development process. And that's where zoning is already in place, meaning we've had to show compliance with the zoning ordinance or obtain the conditional use. And then the land development process is with the township subdivision and land development ordinance, which that's where Mr. Kenner's office takes us through rounds of reviews, and also make sure that we comply. And then if we get approval, we then have to enter into agreements with the township to ensure that we construct things as we've agreed to and as the ordinance is required.
At the engineer, we will discuss some of the issues that we caught stormwater at conditional use, but at a larger scale. Once you get past conditional use and they get into the engineering plans, that's when they'll start looking at landscaping, lighting, impacts to the neighbors, all the buffer plannings, all the details that go into it. It'll be, probably 20 or 30 sheets of drawings. That happens at the very end. So you guys participating tonight, honestly, this has been great feedback for me and our staff, because I get to hear everybody's comments. No one's held any time clocks, no one's held anything in writing. We're all here discussing, but it gives my staff and township staff a lot of feedback. So I'll look at, I don't know all the issues that go on around the property. They don't either, to be honest with you. So this is very educational for all of us, but it helps me formulate conditions for their approval as we move forward. So
Very well said. No, thanks.
I believe you were first over here, yes?
Jessica Young, 142 New Galena Road. I'm just curious as to what your mission statement for Toll Brothers says that you guys build communities, and like for sure, 100% that's the homes, not just the structures. I'm curious as to what do you do to cultivate the culture of the community? Because right now I know there's a lot of people in this room that don't want more high density housing. We already went through all this, I know with the Colebrook, and thank gosh, that was reduced. So I'm wondering right now, I'm assuming the families that would come to live in these homes would be schooled at Butler Elementary.
Yes.
A fair assumption or?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah,
right
they
now-
have school-age children, absolutely.
Right, so right now, Butler Elementary is the highest density ratio student per teacher. Right now, and it is the largest elementary school in Central Bucks. So I'm wondering how that facilitates into your plan or your schematic. Or how that kind of contributes to people in the community and what ramifications would happen.
So,
With another influxes.
so whenever a new subdivision is approved, the municipality notifies a school district within a certain amount of time pursuant to Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code. So that information gets fed to Central Bucks School District, so they can take into account their census. And I believe right now is the time when Central Bucks is considering its overall school census and internal district redistricting if necessary.
Second highest populace is Taiwan.
Understood. So, and that's, you know, while we fully understand that, and we appreciate that, and you know, that's, we want to make sure that we do provide all of the information that's requested by the township, so that they can do what they're obligated to do, which is let Central Bucks School District know. And that's to answer your question about what happens with the school age children.
But I understand that, but I'm asking, what do you feel as for your mission statement to cultivate community, besides from just building homes, or is that solely what you're seeking? Because it seems like there's being a lot of children that are going to be displaced, and right now Pine Run is already at capacity as well. So I'm wondering, there's a lot of, just to build just these homes, there's so much more ramifications and displacement of families and their children and their schools and their friends and stuff, and that's disrupted. I'm just wondering if that's something in your schematic, if that's something that you guys address, or I know you were talking about the walking trails that have now gone, and these homes are going to play stress, I guess, on our parks and whatnot. And I'm not sure the percentage of open space that's on the property itself and what is usable for recreational activity or whatnot. I know that a lot of percentage is, I'm assuming, detention basin or retention. I'm not sure if you're attending.
So some of the areas, the stormwater management facilities towards the front, towards Gregory County Line Road. So the township's ordinance has also requirements for things like bicycle parking and recreational amenities. When we're talking about cultivating community or culture, a home builder is somewhat limited. But one thing I'm sure this community will have is a planned community declaration or homeowners association that will have certain requirements and dedicated areas for common use and shared use of the community for the residents, as well as the connectivity options. But when we think community, we're thinking community in a physical sense. And I think you're also asking us what we do from a cultural sense for community. And I don't know that that's something that Toll Brothers can or will do anything other than come in and try to be a good neighbor, try to be a good community partner. I think there's some other developments in the township that Toll Brothers has completed. But Brian, help me if I'm missing anything or.
No, I know. I mean, I think the community, as far as like, our typical buyer on this community is gonna be young professionals. That's what we project. And it's similar to other communities in the area. Obviously, there'll be some school age kids in there, you know, if there's an opportunity for someone who wants to live here, they will.
I think engaging with the surrounding neighbors through the conditional use process, and there's party status at that, we'll continue to connect with our neighbors. We want to be good neighbors.
Are you living there?
No, I don't, but I've been told for 20 years, we wanna come in, we wanna be collaborative, we wanna build collaboratively. We don't wanna be an issue for anybody here in the township, and we wanna leave it better than we found it, kind of idea. That's really what we do. I mean, so any opportunity we have to connect with different people in the community, we don't shy away from anybody. We'll meet with anybody, we'll talk to anybody. That's what we can do to try to hear concerns and try to do what we can. I mean, there's no reason for myself or anybody on our team not to listen to someone's concerns. And if there's an opportunity we can help, we'll help. We have no problem with that.
Are you proposing any retaining walls?
No, topography of the site is pretty, the only area I would think is, as I think, Gilmore pointed out, there's a connection kind of through to Wawa. That gets a little, there might be some grading in there that needs a wall, but away from homes and more towards Butler. But nothing on the back. It's pretty flat there. We think we can work with there.
And then any standing water on site? Is there going to be standing water on site, and will there be a fence around it for the potential of children?
Yeah, we would, I believe if, we haven't got into the stormwater design, but if there is a retention, the basin that's along up against county line has a split rail fence around there, then we would follow that same kind of guideline. So if there's water in there that stays over a certain period of time, then we would fence that for safety.
Okay,
Yeah, I just am tired of time and time again, it always seems that the community comes in on the back end. After all the time, and the residents that live here, always feel compelled to come here and have to defend, their home, is where they fought and where it's not their vision. And so I appreciate you taking into consideration, our vision and our homes and our vendor and our livelihood for what's happening. But I don't think it's enough just to say we're going to township. No, so I encourage those board of supervisors to really take that into consideration.
Yeah.
Where are our children going to go to school? And how is that going to look right now with the teacher per student ratio? And what's going on at Butler? And how Butler's going to be addressed, because I'm not quite sure how the taxes work. I'm not sure if they're planning on expanding, and God, I would hate to have trailers brought in to help,
They already
They
have,
have
though.
trailers. Well, that's a little bit further down the road. They haven't even gotten any sort of approval yet, so, I mean, we're not
I
there yet.
just wanted to be in the forefront and not, I think
Okay.
that is something that should be considered and not come as.
All right.
Issues that are looked at, and that's what I implore you guys to please do.
Thank you. Okay. Next.
Hi, Peggy Driscoll, 130 BJ Road, Chalfont. Two questions for you. So you're waiting for approval to have this done, so simply yes or no answer.
I'm
if
sorry, who are you
decide
addressing, us or them?
that you-
Okay.
So, yeah, so if you do not get approval, is this a situation where Toll Brothers just goes in and sues and just gets what they want anyway? It's
Nate and I just talked, we came in December of 21, I think, so we've been having a conversation with staff and.
Right,
Different
okay.
township, and there's different options, we've looked at different housing options, as Nate mentioned, there's more of a condo. The larger building apartment, that's permitted under the zoning, so we went back
I
and forth.
understand.
And at the idea we found and working through, we believe we have a plan that's compliant with the zoning as laid out with the town.
Okay, I understand that, so,
Yeah.
but that's not answering my question. My question was, would you just then sue if you did not get approval to do what you wanted to do anyway?
Well, let me jump
So-
in, because the guy to my right, we wouldn't allow, if it
Yeah.
meets zoning, and they meet all the other requirements.
Okay, so
You
there-
cannot, that's why this has been taking so long.
So, right, so therefore the answer would be that. Sounds like
Because I worry
it's
about
going
that
to
stuff
be-
for the residents,
Correct,
and this
Yeah.
board does.
so do
that-
I.
Yeah,
So therefore, it seems to be, it's just,
it's a foregone conclusion that it's going to be done anyway, from what it sounds like.
Not necessarily.
Right, so then
PennDOT might say no access. DEP may say don't cross the wetlands.
okay,
There are so many factors that go in, but from a zoning perspective, that's where you get sued, where
Okay.
you deny a use.
because I also
They-
don't consider it a vacant lot like you called it, I consider it green space. I consider it green space, you know, that is just preserved, it doesn't need to be built on, land doesn't have to be built on, but regardless, my other question is. It gets approved, what is your start date? Because I live here, I work across the street, I work at shop. We already have the apartments that are going down right over there next to Spatola's. I live around the corner from where at Bristol and Business 202. You've got Lower State and Bristol Road that has all that development going on. It's
Not us.
constant,
That's not
and
us.
it's so much right now. So what is the potential start date for this?
They haven't even
It
done
could
their
be-
approvals yet.
Yes, like, are you talking 2 years? I mean.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it depends on like the conditional use process and people always ask questions about what that process is. And Nate explained it much better than I could have. Depending on how long that period is, from that approval, you usually talk a year to get plan development approval.
Okay,
That's like a general guideline. It could go further.
okay.
It's generally never quicker.
Just.
We-
yeah,
and we started-
Thank you.
No, and they started this process, all these plans that I mentioned, they're including that. I would say by the end of this year, they'll have a conditional approval.
Okay.
And need to really iron out PennDOT comments and other issues, but I would guess they're not going till, early the following year, but and if everything goes well, maybe the end of this year.
In the process that Mr. Fox delineated for everybody, there's due process built into that for both sides. And there's public comment built into that for both sides. So at every step and most of the steps in that process, there's opportunity for the public to speak to the planning commission if it goes to the planning commission, to appear before this board again, when it comes before the board again, to appear if they're within a reasonable distance of the project, to ask for party status, to actually ask direct questions at a zoning hearing board if it goes to a zoning hearing board. There's opportunity, but you also have to understand that the developer, the owner also has due process rights and rights to use the land. As long as they're within the law, the board can't stop them from doing what they want to do with their land. I mean,
I do.
so that's the same as a property right that you have in your property and I have in my property. So there's rights and responsibilities on both sides.
Yeah, let me touch on one thing. So I just went through a conditions hearing last week. We have 60 days to have a hearing and they're afforded that right, as Mr. Fresh said. If they waive that, then we can go longer. All right, we got multiple hearings, but let's say the next meeting doesn't work out and it's 65 days. And I know the gentleman's here, they'll work with us on that schedule, but we're held this township for 60 days. And we have to render a decision within 45 days. There's a whole process that they can hold us to, and based on how we've done in this project, I don't think they are. They've been very good to deal with. I have some other builders, been here a long time, that are not as cooperative. I know it's houses and it's density and it's the same issue, but it will go quite lengthy as far as the hearings and all the public input along the way. So by the end of the year, they're probably looking at conditional approval at some point, as long as they don't have any hiccups in zoning or make changes that take it into some type of problem for them, then they have to deal with it.
And my point, the reason why I made my point is to show that this may be the first time that you've heard this presentation in public.
It is, yes.
I guarantee you, it's not gonna be the last opportunity you'll have to
Right.
hear the same thing and hear how they're defined and what the speed bumps are and what the difficulties are. And as the engineer said, PennDOT can come in and say, yeah, sorry, we're not gonna let you access the road. That's not necessarily, I'm not saying that's gonna happen, but I'm saying it could. There's a lot of rubber left on here between where we are now and where this is gonna end up, if it ends up anywhere at all.
And I don't know if you heard in the beginning, we started what we thought was a by right plan, 62 units.
I did.
Then we thought it was 57.
Mhm.
Then we thought it was 47, and now we've settled at 44, and that means we're below a lot of what they call the thresholds within the zoning ordinance.
But do you understand, it's great we went down from 67 and 44, but I think just as many concerns just regarding schools, regarding flooding, the increased traffic, and then just for my own things, like just everything that it all brings with it. And it's just,
with so much development going on right now, it's part of the problem, is that the uproar that we have as far as you moved away from an area that was so condensed with so many people and so many cars and so much stuff. You're trying to get away from it, and now it's coming with us, or it's coming back to us. And I think that's what we're resisting, and that's what we don't want again.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, I've lived in this area my whole life, and I could drive from Horsham to Doylestown in 15 minutes and hit 3 lights, okay? Times have changed, and it's because this is a desirable area to live in. And developers are gonna try and develop as much as they can, because that's what they do. So the only thing residents can do is band together, pool some money together, and when a piece of property goes up for sale, buy it and preserve it.
I hit the Powerball, I'll do that.
Trying to be heavy on this year, it's just kind of like, I just implore you to set the standard and, you know, like for the next 300 more years, just set the standard and, you know, and I'm not saying, you know, it would be ideal if you like said no, green spaces and all that, but set the standard, you know, a whole new way, a whole new century of fishing.
Yeah, we have to live within the law. So, yeah, I mean, it sounds good to say, well, no, we don't want this development, we don't want that development.
We have power that's very well delineated by the state and government as to what we can and can't do.
Sure. No,
So we run a very large risk by trying to step 1/4 of a thousandth of an inch outside of that box.
Which would impact every resident
Everybody in here.
if we get sued for not allowing something that, when he uses the term by right. You have a right to,
Right to do it, and we say no, that's a problem.
yeah, we can't
We've
do
now
that.
violated their constitutional
we
right.
violated
to do what
our-
They want with their property.
Our obligation to run the township correctly.
Yeah, but you know. And I believe that you are a powerful component in helping that transition between what is being built and the families that are coming in and servicing those children.
I think you need to talk to the school board.
Yeah, you
about
should talk to
that.
the school board.
We don't
We
control
have no
schools.
control over that.
I see one more question in the back or there.
So they're directly across from my house. Now, another question is, I was at the planning commission back in April, and they were talking about this easement so that they can connect the walking trail into our neighborhood. And I noticed, it doesn't look like it's in there anymore. Is there already have enough problems?
Are you talking the trail easement
Yeah.
at the back corner? They have removed that. That wasn't secure. You didn't have that. That was. That, all the trails been removed, because I think that needs to get, once this meeting happened, they understand. Seems like they're okay with zoning, and now they can move forward into the engineering, and I do have trails written down. I had one supervisor call me already to talk about it. Planning commission has it in there. You referenced something planning commission reviewed this April 28th, 2022. So this April will be already a year. There's 10 items in here they recommended. I've been trying to follow that along with the board input, and I said, this is one thing where it's tough. The board has given a lot of direction to this applicant. I've enforced that they haven't willingly gone from 62 to 44. They haven't willingly connected the wall. They haven't willingly, that's part of what the trustee of the staff here, and mainly my staff, to meet with them and work through. And I know this board and township very well. I've been here a long time. I understand there's always going to be the issues of drainage, lighting, traffic. I like the green open space. School definitely is something that I don't touch on the school district part, but they have addressed a lot of the board's concerns from a year ago, and we're still at an informal sketch plan. They have not even submitted formal plans yet. So I think that gets lost in one supervisor did mention how, a year later, you forget how much input this board has already done. And mainly given input to us here, and then we try to work on that, and they trust the staff here that if we're giving them direction, they follow it, so.
Sir, can I ask you, are you,
It's a lot of stuff to dig into that, framing diagrams, electrical.
Yes.
All that stuff.
Are-
And I was just, my concern, I guess other people's concern, is that area avenue is already a speedway at times. I mean, because I'm living on a curve, so I'm pulling on my driveway, wasn't too bad, but now people put a fence up. So you're gonna pull out, there's somebody coming, you're gonna pull out, all of a sudden somebody's running your tail.
There's no,
And now, what's happening is Gary Avenue is gonna be extended all the way up to that new development. By Spatolas, according to what they're doing.
But it will not go through to 202.
Well,
It's gonna dead end into the development because that was a concern when that was being proposed
but
that.
it's still proposed.
It's still proposed.
That's still
Nothing's-
proposed. That doesn't even. brought
Oh, I'm
forward.
sorry, that, yeah, I think but it's good, it's not gonna be, we're not gonna make it a cut through. That was one of my biggest concerns about if it went through to 202, that it would just be an additional. I want to get back to what you said about the trails. Are you in favor or against having a trail going into your neighborhood?
Well, I'll put it to you this way. Right now, they're just sketch plan. When they come forward with conditional use, at that point, there'll be a public meeting. And we can bring up the trail factor. And if your residents are here or they want to meet with you, the residents, then you can discuss it as a community, whether you do or don't want the trails. And then that'll determine whether the trails are shown on their final plan, or they go away. That's very simple. Okay?
Mr. Jones, I know you were on the board about 10 years ago, so I don't think anybody else was, and there was a development on the north end of schoolhouse at Town Road, and that development was shot down.
Okay.
Many have been shot down that.
Yeah.
You're talking about True Town Schoolhouse in New Galena where they meet?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that was, that was,
Shot down by the township, by the board. Forgive my language with that, because I'm not exactly 100% sure, but you do have the opportunity, per se, to shoot it down conditionally through different aspects.
no, so Bruce,
that was.
Bruce, yeah, you're confusing. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Not if it's a by right plan, sir. If they present a plan that they have the right to construct, it's a by right plan and the board cannot stand in their way.
Okay.
That was a zoning,
Yeah,
That was not a
Bruce,
by
yeah.
right plan.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm very bad with this.
that's all right.
that was
So-
a zoning change plan. They wanted to change the zoning to allow for residential, at the same time, pick up additional residential. And because they requested a zoning change and we didn't like the plan, they didn't get approval.
No.
Yeah.
Just so.
That's it, short of it.
About that, but I know that was here for that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Anybody have one question? Bye.
Yeah, I'm Jen Root, 520 Erie Avenue.
Say it again?
Jen Root, 520 Erie Avenue. I would sit, my property sits basically like where, like, we can see Wawa, we can hear the gas pumps from our backyard. These houses, the backs of them would face the backs of our properties
Correct?
with a 75-foot between the properties from ours to the start of theirs, like these houses. Are you putting trees and stuff in between?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That is part, like, walk through our property, so wow. Is that gonna be a problem with, like, are they gonna walk into a neighbor's yard now? And
No, smart. You guys brought a landscape plan.
I'm gonna show you a rendered site plan on the board, which shows the details that we've come to this far. Shows you some of the plantings, the buffering to the rear of the units. So, and a lot of this is township ordinance required, that we are required to have a buffer. There's a composition requirement of the buffer, certain trees, certain number of trees. And that will be continually reviewed throughout the remainder of this process to make sure that we are compliant with that.
the last thing I want is to do the dishes and watch somebody else, like, doing their dishes.
Understood.
The way it lines up with our house, the way it sits on our property, we sit higher than a lot of our other houses, so. I don't want to have a direct line into somebody else's, like,
Sure.
from our backyard.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have one
Okay.
comment on my
Yes, sir.
Please state your name.
Hello. Miles Rowe, 371 Stony Hill Drive. This, I guess, is just a kind of feeling of myself, and I know a few neighbors that are in our neighborhood. And it's more directed towards the board on this current plan. The amount of units that are going in here is unacceptable. The impact that it's going to have on wildlife, traffic, schools, just the amount of people that are going to be put into this development is going to make a major impact on our community, especially considering all the other developments that have been put up in the past 5 years. I know traffic has gotten increased. So I would ask that the board finds this current plan unacceptable. And hopefully they can come back with a better plan that has a lot less impact. The other thing too is, and I don't know if it's a possibility, if the board can ask for a feasibility study on what is going to be the impact on our schools before anything is considered, with our schools, our traffic, and so forth.
Okay, thank you very much.
I can answer the last part. There's a community assessment, community impact assessment report due, and I believe that will be presented at initial use hearing,
Commissioners.
which will go through everything we discussed tonight, everything, including
Okay.
finances. So, again, we're at the early stages, but a lot of that stuff will be done at the industry.
Anything from Cynthia or Matt?
No, no further comments from me.
I have nothing further either. Thank you.
I thank you all very much for your comments, and we've taken notes on them. If there's nothing else, we're gonna go on with the rest of our agenda.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I, personally, still brought a dollar. Next time I'll bring a granola bar for you as well.
What?
What?
She didn't eat dinner before she came. She's starving.
Pistachios.
I brought a granola bar. I've already gone through that.
I saw you eating over there.
Okay, I'll give you 2 minutes. Let's get out.
Say nothing unless you're asked. No, don't even, no. There's no, let us ask the questions.
Okay. Next time we have is zoning hearing board applications. We don't have anything at this point to report on that.
There are no zoning hearing board applications.
Okay, thank you very much. Next item be action items. We have a motion to approve the minutes of the December 12th, 2022 business meeting and the January 3rd, 2023 reorganization meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Karen Beth can have it.
Any questions or discussion on both of those minutes?
Yep.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Cynthia unmuted. Is Cynthia unmuted so she can vote?
Hello?
Aye or nay?
Aye.
Okay. Next item we have is a motion to approve the schedule of bills dated January 13th, 2023 in the amount of $528,955.96. And authorize township manager to pay all bills for the attachment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion on the bills list? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, the motion to approve the consent agenda. We have Wawa, we have 180 New Britain Boulevard. We have RHG Properties, Wilson and Steve Couch. Barley Custom Homes and an escrow record plans for 267 Creek Road. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions on those?
I hate to do this.
Then don't do it.
I have to anyway.
Okay. Fine.
You know what? I'll save it for supervisor. Never mind. Aye.
Are we
Moving to a
voting?
question.
No question. I'll save it for supervisor comments.
Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We do have supervisor comments somewhere, right?
No, I took it off. Okay, next item is motion to adopt resolution 2023-03, records resolution number 1. Your motion to approve.
So moved.
For a second.
Second,
These are old records from years and years ago. Any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Motion to adopt resolution 2023-04, 2023 budget amendment number 1. Your motion to approve.
Oh, so moved.
For a second.
Second.
second,
Oh, sorry.
This is to amend the final budget to include expenses for server upgrade and IT consolidation to be paid by using the American Rescue Plan funds. Do we have a motion and a second? Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
aye,
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion to adopt resolution 2023-05, employee manual update for the attachments. Is there a motion?
So moved.
For a second?
second,
Any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to adopt resolution 2023-06, Mill Ridge Public Improvement Dedication. Is there a motion?
so moved.
For a second?
Second.
Are we done with that?
Chairman, yeah. Yes, we're done. This is something new, I believe that,
So we are second one.
this is something we're going to develop. There's some, which I like a lot, because it's a little shorter form, but it's a nice documentation, describing everything. There's one issue out there that's been ongoing, there's, when it rains real heavy, some of the water doesn't get into a couple of the inlets that goes around. There's some, and I'm not talking, when I say settlement, I'm not talking any safety issues, but we'd like to monitor that to see if it happens anywhere else. They're aware of it. And I don't know if this, I've never done this before, as far as, could we put a condition after 3 months? You authorize the engineer to go out and inspect it and notify the developer if there's any issues to be addressed now, not 18 months from now.
I think that can be done.
That can be done, okay. And then I'd like to have them repair it within 3 months, and that gives us still another year. It's these Belgian block curbs, and Ryan's looked at too, it just, if it doesn't hug the curb, it starts meandering out, and that's, unfortunately, that's really steep development, but there's different opinions of whether it needs to be addressed or not. It's just heavy rain, sometimes they inlets.
Difference of opinion between you and the builder?
Our inspector, the bill, no, actually internally.
Okay.
And with township staff, so I like to address it early and not at the end. That's the only thing. It will be addressed, but I'd like to get it fixed and then we're not waiting 18 months from now. So, all right. I think there's language in that already that we could do that. I just wanted to indicate, I know Ryan has been involved in it.
Do we need to,
Do we need to modify
I
it?
don't need, no. I just don't.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. You've heard your discussion. That'll be taken care of with our lawyer or solicitor. All in favor of approving, signify by saying aye.
aye,
Aye.
Okay, motion to approve new domain name for township email. Using @mbtpa.us. Is there a motion to approve?
make that motion?
For a second,
Second.
any further discussion?
Is there any?
Essentially, with the IT consolidation we're going through, we'd like to consolidate the police and us under a single email address.
Okay.
And as our current one, admin and the board is very, very lengthy. The police is obviously, we can't all take PD. So this was the one that was, 1, available, 2, short, and was applicable across all departments.
Yeah, very good.
Okay.
So a motion and a second, all those in favor, signify.
Wait,
What's the software behind it? Is it Windows based? Which
It's,
is,
it's just gonna be like our current one.
Just domain name.
okay, it's just gonna be,
Applying that under one.
okay,
name.
very good.
Okay, so we have motion and second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Motion to approve purchase of new server. As part of our IT consolidation project to be paid using American Rescue Plan funds.
I'll make that motion.
For a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Are we purchasing this currently?
We have
Just
a quote that is good through February 18th. So with the board's authorization, we will begin moving forward with that because it will play a role in as we move our physical servers downstairs, police department. Help us all get on the same page and have one.
This will be combining, okay. That's my question.
Okay, so we have a motion and second. Any further questions? All in favor of approving, signify by saying aye.
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 And motion to approve lot line change for 1 and 2.
Reapprove.
Reapprove, excuse me. Reapprove lot line change for 1 and 2 Naomi Lane.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
This is something that's supposedly. took
Mr.
place
Chair,
earlier.
I'll handle that. This approval was originally done by a previous iteration of this board. Approximately 2 years ago, it was actually right before the township manager started his employment with the township. I was contacted by council who advised me that it may not have been recorded. I advised township staff to place this back on the agenda before you because technically the recorder of deeds under their recording statute can refuse to record the lot line change if it's not processed within a certain period of time from approval. So I'm simply refreshing that approval. So now we can go get it recorded and finalized.
All right, so we have a motion and second. Any further questions? All in favor of approving, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion to authorize 98 Railroad to withdraw DEP planning module.
I'll
Due to the
happily
fact-
make that motion.
Due to the fact that online sewer will now be coming available sometime. So we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving, signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Last for motion to approve township manager to attend the 2023 Association of Pennsylvania Municipal Managers Executive Development Conference. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
For a second.
second. Hopefully it's not soon.
It's not too far from now, I don't think.
It's in May.
Okay.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor of approving, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Informational items. Township managers report.
Please keep it short.
I'll do the first two items on there. As we've talked about earlier, a little earlier in the meeting, we're working, Matt, Ryan Cressman and I are working on a 2023 road program. For a resolution that was sent to the board this week. We're just working out and fine tuning everything through that. I also just want to notify the board where New Britain Township also hosts the Bucks County Consortium materials bid every year. So we've begun that process of taking in all the other local municipalities requests, and we're going to be putting that out to bid in the beginning of February. So it'll be in front of this board in March for approval. And I will turn it over first item to our fearless leader at home.
Thank you all. Yes, I'm still awake.
2 minutes.
Barely, and this one is being dedicated. I've got about a 45-minute presentation.
You now only have 90 seconds.
That joke never gets old. Hey, I wanted to put this on the agenda. I believe Supervisor McCabe had asked at the January reorg meeting that we start talking about this and asked that this be put on the agenda for tonight. I don't have anything solid to report other than the reports that had already been forwarded to the board, one from PennDOT and one from Gilmore. In talking to the township engineer about this, we would like to start getting some direction from the board about where do you want us to go to provide options for the the Keller Road Bridge. There are some things, there are stream bank matters that we need to address, and there are some, the noisy decking. We could talk about replacement. The reason why we need to talk about this now is that we're going to be kicking off the capital improvement plan update. And this will be the first update to the recently adopted capital improvement plan. And so the original 5-year capital improvement plan had a placeholder for the Keller Road Bridge for full replacement. I do not personally believe that's feasible at this time. And so at this point, the township engineer and I would like guidance from the board about which options you would like us to move forward with to get some really good pricing for us to consider at upcoming meetings. So the ideas that we were talking about were the stream bank work, as well as an option of replacing the decking and perhaps getting some costs about that. I say that with a little bit of hesitation because it's an old bridge. It was, once you start peeling away different things, you never really know what's underneath it. So I'd like us to be as careful and thorough as we can be with these options. And if the board wouldn't mind just going around and just giving us a little bit of direction, so the engineer and I can talk about formulating a more specific plan, that would be greatly appreciated.
Why don't we think about having this as a topic of discussion at our work session in February?
And okay, that's a good idea. And would the board like some specifics of what it would potentially cost for different options? Would that be helpful?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
I think
All right,
we've seen various proposals coming by. I think we need to have that stakeholder meeting with the residents to determine which way we're going to move forward.
When did
That's
we
what we
get
talked
a, when
about
did
doing
we,
last time.
when did we get a cost for full replacement?
Oh, about 2 years ago.
3 times.
Did we?
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
part of the Gilmore report. And
I thought we just got
No.
for upgrades of the
Upgrades and
Gabion.
versus
Yeah.
full replacement. Yeah, I remember.
Oh, I don't remember that one.
Well, how about if we resend those back out to the board so that all the board
But I
has it?
don't,
Because we do
if I
have
can
new,
jump in, I don't think Matt and I are, there's still stream bank restaurant.
Okay.
The Gabion baskets fell in, which started this whole thing. Go out and look, there's issues with the
Right.
decking. I still have that email from Eileen telling Janine to go out and look at the Gabion baskets that fell in. So that's one component. And when Matt and I were talking about, this is when you get a grant opportunity. You haven't authorized us to do anything where we have a plan, and maybe we get some free money even just to fix the stream. The bridge could be separate if you don't do a full-blown replacement. If you decide to replace the whole bridge, then I wouldn't go fix the embankments, but Ryan said he can't get in there, it's unsafe. So you probably have to go out to bid on that, but they need drawings, and this is the shovel-ready part.
okay,
Every time there's a grant comes up, we're not moving the needle forward
Right.
enough. Now, I'm not saying the bridge would be part of that grant, but I could get some quotes of just replacing the decking. Matt and I also talked about waiting for PennDOT to come out with their full-blown inspection. They did their preliminary, they're gonna do another one, probably another year. You don't know. I don't know when we get on there. We're on their schedule now. Why don't we wait to see what their next report, where they go in and someone inspects it? And then maybe they don't agree with us. We probably took the safest route. They may say, hey, just do these repairs, but that may be another year from now. Now that PennDOT's involved, I feel like it doesn't matter what we do. We have to go through them. Now we have to get sign off. So wait till they present something, but it could be another year. If the board so chooses to say replace the whole bridge, then Matt and I will start working on that, and they'll have to figure out where you get $2 or $3 million.
I thought we were gonna discuss whether or not we wanted to do that or whether there were other options available.
Well, that's
Well,
fine.
it from my perspective, it changed once we got that original or that initial inspection from PennDOT. They identified things that were not structurally deficient. They were the critical issues that the township corrected almost immediately had to do with signage and a
Right.
couple of things, welding a couple more plates onto the surface. And so they didn't shut the bridge down. It wasn't that was, when Craig and I talked about this, it was okay, this is a point where we can reconsider, maybe the sky isn't falling quite yet. And I think that's what, Craig, correct me if I'm wrong, is what you're alluding to by waiting until we get the full blown PennDOT report. Because this was an emergency report or inspection where they came out to identify anything critical. And through that communication, they notified us that they would be doing a full inspection in the near future.
My recommendation is to wait. This is too much. We've been told this for quite a while. Now PennDOT's involved, it's on the list. The rules have changed. It's like anything. The plan module you just redid that was approvals in May of 2021. And now we're in 2023, we had to redo something because the state came back and said, no, you're not doing one lot. So I don't want to spend, and we haven't really spent too much on soft cost engineering. We haven't done any engineering plans yet, but that would be the next step. And I think you should wait now. I think you need to wait till PennDOT issues the next official report, which will be an in-depth inspection, and then address it. Now, if the board doesn't want to wait and there's a couple of neighbors that want something done, they didn't say we had to do anything. You've addressed all the issues, right?
Correct.
Matt, you're okay.
That's correct.
So you're done, you're okay. I think it's kind of like, does everybody agree to wait then? And I recommend you do, because they may come back with something completely different. And I don't think you should authorize us to start going out for bid on certain things. And, like Matt said, we also look at the decking, and next thing you know, there's a structural issue underneath the decking that we didn't know we had, and it just snowballs.
Let me ask you a question. The stream bank restoration that they spoke of, can that be done without affecting the rest of the bridge?
We can, except for the fact that they can't get in there. That's
Yeah,
what they're
okay.
saying. It's difficult to get in there.
If that's something Mike and I, Matt and I can.
All right, it's
Matt and
9:30
I
at night.
can discuss with Ryan and maybe there's some things he can do, and then we go out to bid on some type of bank restoration, but that would be then authorizes us to prepare plans to come up with a proposal, first of all, designed to fix the embankments and decide whether Public Works can do it. Or there's something there at Walters Road. They ended up doing it and we're okay
Right.
for now.
I don't know if it could be separated out from the rest of the
could.
project, or whether it'd be like putting paint on.
No,
mold.
that has to be done. The stream bank has to be restored.
Okay.
I think you're.
I would be more inclined to authorize the engineer to come up with a plan to do the stream bank restoration and wait on the structural elements of the bridge itself.
I agree.
So PennDOT does, I agree with that.
Okay.
Because what's a benefit for the township is that we own the land on both sides of the stream. And so access to the stream is not necessary. I mean, while Ryan Cressman might say it's difficult to get in there, I like it that it's township property and that we can think of creative ways to gain access.
We own it on the other side of the bridge? Yeah, I know we own the one side on both sides.
No, I mean, on either side of the stream, on the one side of the bridge.
Okay.
On the one
You can
side.
also-
of the bridge.
You can
Okay.
also do emergency repairs under certain criteria of DEP. Now, you have to have an easement to get in there, but even if it's just temporary, so I agree with that approach.
All right.
Engineer away.
Thank you all.
All right. Thank you, Matt. All right, we have departmental reports, which were in your information. Chief, anything you have to say?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'll just be brief. One thing that I want to keep the board apprised of is our new hiring process. To date, we do have 15 applications. The application window closes next Monday evening.
Okay, good luck. We hope. Any questions for the chief?
I just have one question.
Go ahead, Cynthia.
Chief, what was the impetus to join the Ring Camera neighborhood application?
It's actually, it's a benefit for us at no cost to be able to reach those residents that have Ring cameras or any cameras on their residents that would be willing to share video with us in order to help us with investigations. It also is another avenue for which gives us the ability to communicate with those who have the app. So it was kind of a no-brainer. I mean, I have a Ring camera. I get all the notifications from where I live. I see it as a benefit as long as we use it appropriately.
Yes, I also have a Ring camera. I was surprised when it said, look at your brand new neighbor. So I wondered, okay.
All right. Solicitors report, anything?
All solicitor updates were provided to the board in executive session. There is nothing for public.
Okay, engineer.
I also have a Ring camera and I've been keeping track of the township police as well.
Okay,
That's all that pop up. a couple weeks ago. That's enough tonight. I have.
thank you very much. For the supervisor's comments. You got 30 seconds down at the end there, boy.
My comment was in relation to escrow. This is directed at Mr. Bates. Are we current with all escrows, with all developers? Is anyone negative? Are we tracking that properly and everyone is current?
Yes, that is, we're still going through, me and Joe are still wrapping up, not wrapping up, but still working on that transition process. So we're going through the process of reconciling all those items as well. But to my knowledge, there is nothing in the negative.
I did see a great deal of escrows being returned.
That's correct.
That were some very
Which
old
is
names.
evidence of us cleaning up a lot of.
Yes, very old names.
Yeah.
Names that- Old names, yes.
Okay, very good. Just want to make sure that's being kept up with. Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Supervisors?
I'll pass on mine tonight. Just very quick, thank our police department for their continuing dealing with our residents on a professional and helpful level.
As it was a very nice letter we got from the resident about the officers helping. Okay,
Anything else?
Well,
Cynthia
Cynthia.
have anything?
I have no comments at this time.
thank you. Committee reports, Park and Recreation Committee, you have a copy of their minutes from last time. And discussion there.
No.
Public comment. You again?
He only shows up once in a while. He's got to get it all in. Come on.
Busy with other things. Bruce Quakenthal, Chief, I don't know if this goes to you, or goes to the township. The speed limit indicators on Brittany Drive. Does that code go to you? Yes. Thank you. Okay, on the first house on the left. I'm not there, but thank you. Has there been would you know, a increase in tickets or anything, patrols or anything? Because I do see them stopped a lot, or do we get any feedback on these types of apparatus in neighborhoods? Yeah, so actually those signs are put out to collect data in addition to notifying motorists of what their speed are. So we, and I say we have a leadership team and there's 2 corporals assigned to the geographical area. So the 2 corporals that are assigned to that geographical area have access to the data that those signs have collected. To look at, is there patterns in increased speed at certain times of the day that we need to then employ additional resources as far as patrol units out there enforcing speed limits or just more visibility in order to let people know what the payment is. Second question is, I noticed that you've been hiring. Has there been more retirement, or you're just bringing in a bigger force? So we did in the last budget for 2023, the board approved us to add an additional officer. And that position will be utilized to create a traffic safety officer position. So when you bring up the speeding signs, those are something that we need an officer with those expertise who can pay more attention to the traffic issues that we're having throughout the township and help us to determine how we're going to deploy our patrol resources. Well, I know that you have an application, you have a thing out for an application now, but you have had a couple outs prior within the last week of years.
We hired a new officer in 2022 to replace a officer that resigned in 2022. We'll have another retirement in early 2024. And after that, I'll have two other officers that'll leave around 2026.
That's basically my question. You're, in a way, you're replacing, you're not really adding one.
Well, this one we are at.
You're adding one, but
We're
you know,
going from 14 sworn officers to 15.
okay, great, thank you.
Anything else?
Okay, any other public comment? Okay, announcements. Next meeting of the Board of Supervisors, Newburgh Township will take place on Monday, February 6th, 2023 at 7 p.m. at the Township Building. The agenda and meeting materials will be posted on the Township website and also on the building. And the minutes and recording of this meeting will be publicized and available within 24 to 48 hours. And no other announcements. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
There's a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Good night. Thank you, everyone.
Good night.